By now, you're aware of the effort to force people to use preferred pronouns, but you may not fully understand what that means in application. Well, just today, Time magazine illustrated the challenges of this brave new world in a tweet. Now, they sent out a tweet that read, quote, Time spoke to genderqueer author and illustrator Maya Kababi on about air work, and they insert this word EIR, which is apparently a new pronoun, air work, the efforts to restrict access to air writing, EIR, and again, I think it's pronounced air, but I really don't know, and what A make of the current cultural moment. A is a word, EY, which apparently is they without the TH. End quote. Now that's the tweet. Now for those of us who read English, this is a very difficult sentence to read because it includes made up words claiming to be pronouns that we're all supposed to act like we understand. Now, this isn't just confusing, but people think the law requires you to speak this way. Some people at least. In Kansas, a school district suspended a teacher for refusing to speak this way. The teacher, Pamela Ricard, eventually retired from teaching middle school in Fort Riley, Kansas, but not before facing disciplinary action for her religious beliefs. Now, the teacher insisted that she would treat every student with respect and dignity, but that God assigns gender. Doctors and parents just acknowledge what God did. However, the school district told her she was required to use preferred pronouns with anyone who asked. The teacher sued, and in the latest development, the school district has agreed to settle the case and pay the teacher $95,000 for violating her constitutional rights. Joining me now to discuss this is Caleb Dalton, legal counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom, who represented Ricard in this case. Caleb, good to see you today.
Joseph, good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Well, this is good news. This personal pronouns thing is kind of a personal pet peeve. But what's your reaction to this case?
Well, we're grateful for the result. It's a good result not only for Ms. Rickard, but it's a good result for all members of the citizens of the United States, and especially those in Kansas, teachers who want to live according to their faith without being forced to mislead parents and to speak harmful messages to students.
Now, the lawsuit states that schools cannot force teachers to promote novel views about gender fluidity and ever-expanding pronoun categories without regard to the First Amendment or due process. What big picture freedom of speech and religious liberty ramifications could this victory have?
Well, there's two important issues in this case. One is the right of the teacher not to be forced to speak a message that violates her conscience, just as a condition for having a job. She was being compelled to personally affirm an ideological belief, and all Americans should oppose that kind of totalitarianism. The other issue was she was being told she has to speak out of both sides of her mouth. The school in this case had a secret set of books where they had students' preferred names that they wouldn't show parents. And they would tell teachers, you have to use the name at school in the secret book, but then in the official system that we show parents, you have to use the official name there. And you have to keep it straight. And if you don't, then you're in violation of our policy and could be subject to discipline. That's not only unconstitutional, it's a violation of both parents' rights and the teacher's duty to be forthright and honest with parents. And no school should have a policy like that. We're thankful that the court recognized that in this case and held that policy was unconstitutional.
So it sounds like she was being told by her employer to lie to the parents. Is that a summary?
That's exactly right. She was being told, you have to deceive parents. You have to tell parents when you're talking with them via email and a teacher-student conference. And the judge actually brought that up. How is a teacher supposed to abide by this policy and deceive the parents during a conference when the student is there? She has to refer to the student by one name and pronoun, and to the parents, she has to use a different name and pronoun. Yeah. How is that even possible in a parent and student teacher conference? Yeah. It's not. And the judge recognized that this policy led to both absurd results and also a violation of federal law and the United States Constitution.
Yeah, another one of the potentially absurd results I want to explore with you a bit. We're familiar with he, him, she, her pronouns, and typically we think of this as you have to refer to a boy with female pronouns. But in the tweet we opened this segment with from Time Magazine, we see an illustration of the fact that this pronoun creativity is vast. People are allowed essentially to create their own pronouns. From the school's perspective and policies like this that you have seen, are there any limits to what they were to require a teacher to do in order to comply with someone's pronoun preferences?
It's actually interesting you bring that up, because we had an evidentiary hearing in front of the court in which we asked the school's staff that very question. What are the limits? We asked, what if a student came up and said, I would prefer to have ze/zer pronouns? And they said, yes, you'd be required to do that. We asked, what about fe/ver, which is a pronoun I recently learned about, which means not exactly human, more feline. And at that point, the school said, well, maybe we would need to have a discussion with the student about that one. We don't know about that. But in reality, there's no limits. Once you decouple from reality and biological reality that we can observe and that we know, there are really no limits to this type of ideology, which again goes to show why you shouldn't force teachers to be a mouthpiece to express this, to deceive parents, and then also to speak messages that just are not truthful to students as well.
That's exactly right. Caleb Dalton, Alliance Defending Freedom, thanks so much for your work on this. We celebrate this victory with you and all the work that you guys do on our behalf. Thanks for being with us today as well.
Thanks for having me.